Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Sunday. How are you doing today? My name is Rihanna, and I'm the founder of the plan and the curator of the S.E.L.F Project. Today, we are so excited. So excited. We've got some really special guests on a very special topic that is dear to my heart. But before I go into it, thank you for taking time out to join us today on the S.E.L.F Project. So, we are on our September show, and September is all about self care. Now, the show in itself is all about having deep conversations about how we can develop all aspects of self. And these live podcasts unpack the meaning of these self words, how we can embody, deny, or improve these aspects of self, share stories, tips, resources, and sources of support on how we can see every life fulfilled. Self, right? So, held on the fourth Sunday of each month, we explore a self word that is voted for by the general public, and we'll discuss how these words can be soul changing sessions, how we can embody a lot of the information that our guests and our audience provide to us. So make sure you stay tuned because we are going to be back with our guests, five beautiful, powerful, amazing individuals discussing all about the power of self care. See you shortly. Hello, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. If you missed my wonderful introduction, my name is Rihanna Ebanks Bab, and I am your host for today. So, we have a special show for you today, and we are, yeah, I'm not even gonna bother. I'm just gonna dive right in and introduce our guests. So, first, we have Melinda Wadzanai, who is a digital entrepreneur, travel advisor, wellness coach, and ambassador for the amazing Manhood Academy. Welcome to the stage, Melinda.
Greetings. Thank you, sis. Thank you for
How are
having me.
you doing?
Amazing. Really privileged to be on the show today.
Wonderful. And just briefly explain to our guests and our viewers who you are, what you're doing, and what brought you to the Self Project today.
Okay, so I'm Melinda Wadzanai. I am actually a holistic lifestyle consultant. So putting together all my different skills, I work with, I help people to essentially uh, do better, So with the Manhood Academy Global, we work together with, we're working specifically with young teenage boys to help them achieve better outcomes ultimately. So a lot of yeah, working with the parents as well. I'm a member of the senior leadership team, and
Yeah.
we've been doing just a lot of work trying to help people in the post-pandemic recovery, so to speak, if that makes sense. So we deal a lot with mental wellness, with emotional wellness, and physical and psychological wellness.
Amazing. Amazing. I will definitely advocate. I also have worked with the Manhood Academy. They are an amazing organization. Sister Melinda, also with your travel and wellness. Listen, all I can say is I need to be where you are. I need to be where you are. Thank you so much, sis, for being here. I appreciate love you. Next, we have Terry Floyd. So Terry is a behavioral scientist, multi-certified. Are you hearing this? Multi-certified professional coach, practitioner, published author, and she uses multiple techniques to meet the needs of her clients. Welcome to the stage, Terry.
Thank you, Rihanna. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing your Sunday morning with us. So, as I asked Melinda, please tell a bit more about who you are, what you do, and what brought you to the Self Project.
Absolutely. As Rihanna stated, I am a behavioral scientist. I'm a published author, multi-certified, a professional coach, a mental health educator, founder and CEO of TF Solutions Center, which is an educational consulting firm, as well as a CEO and founder of the Know to Thrive Collaborative, which is a coaching and consulting firm where our mission is to inspire, uplift, and empower and encourage others.
Amazing, amazing. And what brought you to the Self Project today?
Well, just because I, as a published author, I have published a lot of self-development journals, as well as poetry books and related to self-care, as well as anything that's regards to self. Note to self is something that I'm passionate about. That's one of my passions too, as well as encouraging others. I practice what I preach. And so this platform is an amazing opportunity to continue to share with like-minded individuals. So
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Thank you very much for being here, sis. We
thank
appreciate
you.
you. Next, we have Lucy. Lucy is a life coach. Sorry, first and foremost, she is a life coach, grief and bereavement counselor, and based on her own experience, has developed a coaching program called Magnetic. Welcome to the stage, Lucy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My pleasure to be here and to meet other women who are on the quest for the same sort of things in life. And being on this program reminds me of a few things about self-care about myself that I proclaim, but not
Mm-hmm.
always practice. So having to do this exercise of coming on here is just reminding me again that, it is important to practice the things that you actually preach.
Absolutely. I can testify to that. Absolutely. And what brought you to the Self Project today?
Well, I want to share with the others, my practices and based on all the different things that you would like to bring up in the program today, how you practice sexual self-care, how you practice personal, physical self-care, and mental. So, yeah, so I'm here for that today.
Amazing, amazing. I'm very interested to hear your perspective, especially as a grief counselor. I mentioned this to you as we was preparing for the show, but I really do believe there's a lot of people experiencing cumulative grief that it's not coming to the forefront. They're not managing things well, and it's just building up and building up and building up. And it'll be very interesting to know from your perspective how people can reduce the impact of that cumulative grief and how best they can serve themselves during a time of turbulence and difficulty. So thank you very much for being here.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we have Bosede, and she is a mental health therapist, a child and adolescent counselor, and certified CBT therapist and dialectible behavior therapist. Welcome to the stage, Bosede.
Thank you for having me, Rihanna. I'm excited to be here this morning. Thank you for this
Wonderful.
opportunity.
Thank you for being here and taking time out all the way from Nigeria as well, everyone. Thank you for being here. And please tell our guests and our viewers a bit more about who you are, what you do, and what brought you to the Self Project.
Okay, I'm a mental health therapist. I offer therapeutic services to young adults. Even though
Mhm,
sometimes I attend to the elderly, but I have young adults more as my client. I also
mhm,
work with children and teenagers. So before I switched to providing mental health services, I was a school counselor. And I didn't
mhm,
just want to be that. I'm passionate about children because, of course, if we want to raise a better society, we want to raise a better nation, we need to start with the younger ones. And
mhm,
besides that, I work with an NGO and I also have my private practice. So I provide therapeutic services to people in my private practice. And then I also volunteer with different organizations that are particular about mentoring children, mentoring adolescents, organizations that also provide mental wellness services with
mhm,
children. We go to different schools for outreaches. We talk to teenagers on how they can protect their mental health, talk to teenagers about issues that are prevalent to them, such as substance use, drug abuse,
mhm.
sexuality, um, teenage pregnancy, and all that.
Yeah, all very, very important subjects that I wish I had when I was growing up, in all honesty. So thank you for the work that you're doing. And those of you that don't follow Bosede, she is dropping daily knowledge. Yeah, I've been following all your posts and you are dropping daily knowledge about different aspects. So if there's any one area that you're not sure about how to deal with, follow Bosede. Trust me, she's got the knowledge. So, self
Thank
care,
you for that.
ladies. Self care. You're very welcome. Self care, self care, self care. Such a powerful topic. And this month is actually Self Care September, Self Care Awareness Month. And it just happened to be that our guests, our viewers, and our people across social media voted for this topic. And I'm so pleased because it just aligns so beautifully with it becoming now autumn and we're going into more colder months.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important for us to not only re envision what self care is, but also shake up our routines for these colder months as well. Now, I know, Lucy, earlier you mentioned some of the topics that we're going to cover, and I find that a lot of the time there is not much mention about some of the topics that we are going to cover, such as sexual self care. A lot of the time we hear about having bubble baths, we hear about physical health, and all of that is very well and very good. But I really wanted us to look at some more conventional and unconventional ways of looking after self that isn't really talked about. So before I go into it, those of you that have been on this show with me before or have watched one of the Self Project shows know that I like to give a definition. Okay. So I'm going to quickly share with you my definition of what self care is. Okay. So hopefully you can all see this. So to me, self care is the intentional oh, I've lost myself. Okay, the intentional activities and actions that you can take to look after and care for your mental, environmental, physical, social, emotional, and spiritual well being. Self care is honest, is personal to the individual, and is vital for us to be our best self. We thrive when we are functioning at our optimal ability for ourselves and for others. Now, that's my definition of self care. I'm curious to know your definition. So I'm gonna first of all ask Melinda, what is your definition of self-care?
Um, I'd agree with what you said, but I'd also say for me, self care. I've been doing a lot of work on my like healing my inner child.
Mm,
So self care for me relates very much to that. It's very closely connected to that. So anything that yeah, anything that is going to help me mend that rift, create that, healing. That for me is self care. So it includes things like you said, the bubble baths, the walks in the park, but also meditation, things that might not always be comfortable, but it's all part of the process. So that's what self care really clearly means to me.
lovely, lovely. Thank you for sharing, Melinda. But Sally, what about yourself? Is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
Yes, certainly. Self-care is a combination of activities from my experience that I engage in to rejuvenate. Self-care are those techniques that I employ, or I'll say that I deploy in order to nurture my mind, to nurture my soul, to nurture my spirit. And I also
Mm,
underline the word healthy because, of course, there are some activities that we engage in. Maybe they help us feel better temporarily, but of course, the damages, in the future, the
yes.
aftermath will lead us to worse situations than where we are coming from. So, healthy activities. I love watching movies a lot.
Mm,
So I love watching movies. In my spare time, I've observed that lately I have a routine, I have a schedule where I need to see a movie once in 2 days. So between a one day to I tend to finish a movie, reflect on the values, the lessons that I've learned from the movie. And I also engage in walks in the morning, taking my children to school. And of course,
mm,
in the afternoon, I have to go and pick them as well. And then sometimes I don't focus on anything. Sometimes I don't focus on anything. It is not time to work. It is not time to, of course, scroll through social media,
mm,
Instagram, Facebook, and all of that. And I just focus on myself. I'm reflecting on how my day went, what I did, why I did some things, some decisions that I made, what I was thinking when I made those decisions, where I was when I said certain things to certain people. So that's my
Yes.
definition of self.
I love that. Very detailed, very detailed. And you know what? All I envision is that time for you being able to be solely for you, but also shared as well. Like you said, taking your children to school, that's also part of self care, is connecting with others, connecting with family, and being able to even connect with nature by going out with walking and stuff like that. So, very much a you time, but a shared experience as well. So, thank you very much for sharing. Lucy, Terry, anything to add to that?
So it looks like everything's been said, but what I would add is what I would add to that is that, again, as you said, spending time alone, because I
Mm,
interact with people all the time, and
mm,
it is quite difficult to do self-care when you're surrounded by people. For
mm,
instance, in my day job, I work with a team, and in that team, I've got 14 people on my team, and each one of them has got their own needs, their own demands. So you're giving all the time. And then I
mm,
actually do self-care when I get home. So at home, I'm able
mm,
to be on my own a lot of the time. And I take this opportunity to ask myself, how am I feeling right now? Or what do I need right now? So these are two powerful questions that I ask myself to tune in with my own self. That's my kind of
mm.
self care.
Yeah, very much so. And thank you for highlighting that, because we're going to be delving into social self care, how to strike that balance between being available to people, but also preserving for yourself. So thank you for bringing that point up. And Terry, yourself, what does self
Um,
care mean to you?
I agree with everyone, what everyone has shared. The only thing that I just will add is, again, it's definitely important about being intentional, of practicing and taking an active role, in protecting your own self.
Yeah.
And I would definitely encourage the internal well-being. I love those questions that Lucy stated, because those are intentional questions and that you have to answer. And so it's just about being intentional and setting aside, taking time, focusing on that internal well-being as well as the external, but most importantly, the internal well-being.
Yes, 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 yes. And I know we're going to get into it, especially when it comes down to the emotional well-being questions, because, yeah, definitely that's how you're able to explore, do that deep explorative work. Many of us do avoid because it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's necessary. So thank you very much for that, Terry. So I'm going to kick off with our first question, because I think, yeah, this one is one that many people don't really understand, or maybe they may not know how to practice it. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of the time it's usually confused with mental self care. And what I'm talking about is intellectual self care, how you can build up your intelligence and your ability to understand information, how you utilize the information. So, my first question, and I'm going to throw this out to you, Lucy, can you share any specific examples or practices around intellectual self care that you might engage in that helps you, nurture your mind, or how it influences your personal growth and well-being?
The first one for me, I would say, is decluttering.
Mm,
So decluttering both physically and mentally.
mm,
Physical decluttering for me is I love space. I like to have a lot of space around me. I function better when I've got lots of space. So
yeah.
I do my best to remove out of my presence anything that doesn't serve me. Any
Yeah.
object that I haven't used for the last 2 years gets donated or got rid of. So that's the first one, physical decluttering. Um,
Mm,
Unfortunately, for instance, when I'm at work in my day job, sometimes I find my desk really, really cluttered. And that's
mm,
when I know that my mental well-being is being challenged.
mm,
When I'm out of control, I've got so much paper around me, and this is a sign that I'm being challenged mentally.
mm,
So the other decluttering that I do is mental decluttering. So the biggest example was 2020 when we had the pandemic, and we were in lockdown. Um, there's a lot of TV programs, news going on. One day I woke up, I said, I'm not going to watch this. I'm not going to allow myself to be dragged into all of this. It's fearful. It's challenging to to us, and there were lots of things going on at the time. So I just switched off my TV, and from that day, 3 years on now, I don't have a TV. So I stopped watching TV. I stopped watching the news, and any programs that don't benefit me, I don't get involved in. And this is part of you know um, being sane, keeping myself sane. And
Yes.
mental cluttering also involves not getting involved in discussions, conversations that do not nurture you, like gossiping, talking about things and people instead of talking about ideas. So
Yes.
that's the one thing that I've done for myself, that I feel keeps me connected, keeps me on the ball, and it's total mental sanity for me.
Yes, yes, yes. And you've had a comment here from Nicola here who says, when you mentioned about decluttering, that's a big one for me also. In the bin you go. Because it's true, we hold on to things. We have these emotional attachment to items, to places or people that sometimes need to be severed for us to make space for the things that we do actually need, that's going to allow us to get to our highest self, our highest good. So you've got a vote there for from Nicola. Thank you very much for sharing. And when you was mentioning about decluttering like your work desk, I'm looking at mine and I'm like, it's actually quite nice and tidy. So that's a good sign. I'm in a good
Well, you're in a
intellectual
good
space.
place.
Yeah. Definitely so. Definitely so. Thank you very much. Bosede, what about you? What do you do to practice intellectual self-care?
I love learning new things.
Mm,
And then why I agree with Lucy on declustering, the more you are able to sieve information, the more you're able to sieve the messages that you have in your brain and in your mind, the more you're able to receive. I mean, you unlearn to also relearn. So I love learning new things, but I'm also mindful of what I learn. So anything that brings out the best in me.
mm,
I think about 2 years ago, there's 2021, when I started being intentional about writing on my social media handles. I mean, writing in order to impact people, talking about mental health, mental wellness. I asked myself, can I do this? I've always loved writing,
mm.
but the fear of putting things out there and people cannot resonate or people cannot understand, it
Yeah.
was there. So I started learning how to write, moving from one, not too much anyway, but one program on copywriting, content writing, in order to serve people better. But on the long run, I also became, better when it comes to processing information, when it comes to the kind of information that I allow myself to engage with. Then, okay, I
Yeah.
said, I need to add, carousels to my writing. It can't just be text and text alone. Then
Yeah.
I decided to engage with Canva. I'm smiling because I can remember the first time I started designing with Canva. It was
Mm,
horrible. But moving from one day to another, and then when I look back to my first few posts, I'm like, wow, is this me? Because of course that brings out the best in me, and I'm certain that I've not even explored all the options that are on that app, of course, which is Canva. So if anything that brings out the best in me,
mm.
anything that helps me to unlearn and also relearn, that is how I read myself. That is how I grow myself intellectually.
That's amazing. I like the fact that you as Terry mentioned before, intentional with your actions to develop that intellectual self-care so you can serve others from a place of plentifulness rather than feeling like, you're unable to do certain things because of certain restrictions. And it definitely shows that you have done the work, honestly. So well done to you for that investment in self, honestly. Well done. Melinda, Terry, what about yourself? What does intellectual self-care look like to you?
Um, I agree with the decluttering definitely because I always feel so much better and things just flow a lot
Mm,
easier when the space is clear, when I don't have junk in my space, so to speak. But I do also I read a lot, but I read specific types of books, if that
mm,
makes sense. Similar to Lucy, I don't really watch TV. I get a lot of flack for it because I never know what's going on. I don't know anything about any of the programs. I'm quite again, I'm quite intentional with what I watch, you know.
mm,
So I do have friends that get it, and then there's people that just don't understand. So, you know, I watch things that are feed my yeah, what I want to learn, what I want to be able to do, you know. So
yeah,
it was a bit of an obsession with tiny houses at one point in time because I just thought it's a fantastic idea that would be amazing in Africa, for example, you know.
yes,
And then so that's there in the mind, you know. So now it's about actually being able to move forward and get that to happen, you know. Yeah, I just like being able to yeah, definitely watch content that inspires me or helps to further my thinking. So for example, 19 Keys, I do like the high level conversations because they
mm,
explore so many different topics that I'm very interested in, but from a different perspective. So
mm,
it just sort of feeds the fire and yeah, I do like that.
yeah.
Mm.
I love that. I love that so much. One show that I've actually restarted watching is Dragon's Den because I'm trying to go into a position in my life where I can start building and pitching for funds for my business. So I'm trying to like, okay, what are investors looking for?
Yeah.
What do I need to do? How do I need to present myself? What numbers do I need to know? So that's my intellectual self-care right there. So I'm right on that with you, definitely. Thank you for sharing. And Terry, what about yourself?
Just to kind of piggyback on what everyone has already shared, decluttering is definitely one of the top ones, and I think it's definitely important. Once we can declutter, we're able to kind of see clearly and have the clarity of the things that we need to work on or areas that we want to focus on.
Mm,
One of the things that I do specifically is I love learning. I think I'm a professional, lifelong learner. I'll take interest in certain areas, learn as much as I can. Once I learn that skill, I'm definitely a strong advocate in sharing and teaching others.
mm,
Um, I think that's from probably childhood being a know-it-all, and then now it's like I'm able to learn this information and share it with other people that not only help myself, but help others. And then the last thing that I do, I'm always looking for ways to kind of stay in that creative space,
mm.
whether it's learning something new in the art realm or even writing, but just kind of staying within those creative ways that inspire me, that helps intellectually with my self-care as well.
I love that. Yeah, I find creativity and intellectual self-care very synonymous with each other because one feeds the other and the other feeds the other. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I very much agree. Thank you so much for sharing. And um, I think this one now brings me into a second question because we've all mentioned very much how we feed our minds. Now, I'd like us to move on to how we feed our bodies, our physical self-care. Now, I will start off with you, Lucy. What are some of the ways or habits or practices that you prioritize your physical self-care in order to build better wellness resilience?
This is an area where I definitely need to work on because, as I say, it's easier said than done.
Hmm.
However, I must give myself a pat on the back for saying that I love moving myself.
Mm,
So I make sure that I have at least minimum of 20 minutes of walk every day. So that's a
mm,
non-negotiable for me. You know, I must walk every single day. Whether if I'm not walking for leisure, I'll be walking to work or back from work. You know,
mhm,
I just make sure I I have this period of walking, always minimum of 20 minutes a day. And if it's otherwise, I can go out. If I'm not working on the days that I don't work, I'll go out for a walk, a leisurely walk, which is different. I usually walk to the park, so I'll be there with nature, and sit and enjoy my environment. So walking, and also walking it distracts the mind from your worries, for instance, because you don't tend to think about your worries when you're walking. You're looking around, you're absorbing your environment, you're looking for the beauty of what's out there and so on. So for me, my main physical activity is walking. I do some stretching exercises, but I must admit, don't have a routine. I only do it when I feel like it. When I wake up in the morning, I'll take 5-10 minutes to stretch myself, because when you get to a certain age, stretching is very important for the body. So I try to incorporate that in my daily, although it's not every day, but at least 3 times a week I do it. And the other thing, I like treating myself to a massage. I like having a massage once a month, maybe more sometimes. And the other thing is taking naps during the day. So I have 4 days in the week when I'm not at work. So, when I've seen my clients or I've been with my own coach, for instance, I always make some time in between. And my desire is to sleep for 15 minutes in the afternoon. But sometimes I end up 2 hours of sleep. And and then that's when I say to myself, well, my body needed it, I may be late cooking or something else, but I needed the rest. So these are the physical, main physical self-care that I do for myself.
Yes, thank you so much. Rest is so important. We underestimate how much rest impacts us, and having a good sleep hygiene can positively influence our well-being. So thank you for highlighting that, Lucy. Anybody else want to jump in before I move on to our next question? Because I'm like, oh my God, how are we already half an hour in? I could talk about this topic all day. So yeah.
I was just going to add drinking water, because I think we all don't drink enough water. It's one of those things. So about 2021, I started taking vitamins and drinking water with those vitamins. That's what got me into the habit. So every morning I have to drink water and take some CMOS, because then that just lets me know that I'm taking care of my body. So yeah.
And tell us a little bit more about CMOS for those of us that may not currently take it, or no one that knows about it and its benefits. Tell us a bit more about how it
Yes,
supports.
CMOS is amazing. It's got like 92 of the 107 in essential minerals that you need for your body to be able to function. So it's got and it's got it in healthy doses. It's natural, and it's all just perfectly packaged. It's so easy to use. I started having it with water because the gel can be quite slimy to start with. But now I've progressed. I actually make my own CMOS now. Wash it off and then soak it overnight, put some lemon in it and stuff to get rid of the sea smell. And then you can put it in your food. So even the other day I made a nice soup and I used a little bit of the CMOS just to thicken it up instead of using the powdered stuff. So I would recommend highly for everyone to be able to put some CMOS into their diet, even if it's just start with small doses, but it's very healthy. You can have a little bit every day. And it's great. It's great for your skin, great for your internal organs, for your hair, for your eyes. It's wonderful. And it's good for your brain health as well. So, yeah.
Amazing. Some knowledge. I told you all, there's going to be some gems dropped today. Thank you very much, Molinda. Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to swiftly move on to our next question, because I think this one's very important and I want us to have a bit of time on this, especially us all being a panel of Black women. My next question to you, actually, no, before I relay the question, I'm going to play a quick video that I posted on social media the other day. And I think it's very, very important for us to explore this topic in its entirety. So hopefully you all will be able to hear this as I'm sharing.
You're raised to think, oh, if I take care of everybody else, I'm a good person. You know what I mean? I put myself last. A lot of women in my family, that's how we were raised, especially Latinos. Like, everybody comes before you. I'm last. I'll eat last. I'll get dressed last. I didn't even take a shower. It's fine. Like, that's how you're raised. And you come to the realization that, oh, it's not that. Like, I actually have to take care of myself so I can take care of everybody else better.
I hope you all heard that. I didn't even check. Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. That would have been embarrassing, but I would have played it again. So, so whilst yeah, before we get into the topic of cultural self-care, I came across this video of Lo and Oprah having this very powerful conversation around the culture of women in her family as a Latina woman, putting themselves in the back burner, putting themselves on the sideline. And it just reminded me of the culture of Black women, very much similar in many respects. And I'm not going to go into the political side of things, but culturally, it can be a thing that we don't practice self care for a number of reasons, whether it is that we feel guilty of being able to take care of ourselves, or we don't know how to, we weren't taught how to look after ourselves and put ourselves first. It might be that we don't have the awareness of how to do it. But I just wanted to throw it out there to you all. Um, how important is it to actually practice um, enhancing your cultural identity and maybe even shifting some of those cultural norms as part of your self care? And I'm going to ask Terri this question first.
Thank you for sharing that video first and foremost. I think it's definitely important to highlight that. I believe it's important to embrace it because while it is, I can speak for my family, the culture is to put everyone first and push and serve others while you kind of neglect and don't have the time or take the time to take care of yourself. And usually in the past, like older women that were in my family, I would see the only time that they would actually rest is when they're sick. Their body kind of shuts down. And so I know, as being a parent myself and even seeing my mom and how she kind of changed and shifted that narrative, I thought that it was definitely, think that it's definitely important that to recognize and know that self-care does not mean that you're selfish. It means that you are actually being intentional.
Yeah.
And if you don't take care of yourself, then you're actually being more selfish than neglecting yourself, than taking care of yourself.
Right.
Because if you do not choose you first and
Mm,
take care of you, you're unable to take care of anyone else. And that shows the ripple effect or the struggles that those that are coming after you or you're caring for will be impacted and affected. Because if we're not feeling our best, it is going to relay in our relationships. And
mm,
so having embracing that cultural identity to know that it's important to take care of yourself, that it's not selfish. I think it's key to identify and know that included is a way to um, enhance or contribute to your self-esteem and
mm,
self-worth. Because with self-care, we sometimes forget about our own worth
mm.
when we neglect our self-care. So.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And Bosede, I'd like to bring you into this conversation because, as I said before, you live in Nigeria, and my assumption is there are a lot of people that look like you that are surrounded by you, whereas in the UK or maybe even the US, that image may look very different. That representation may look very different. So, to you, why is it important to practice cultural self-care?
Thank you, Rihanna. So, from the video you shared and from what Terry has also mentioned, as women, they're expected to care for everyone, and we even feel guilty when we are not able to do that, when we do not put out the best or the best of us. But
Mm,
I love the part of our culture as Nigerians, as Africans, which is investing in ceremony. And I'm
mm.
from the ethnic group, Yoruba ethnic group, where we love to party a lot. Sometimes people say we overdo it, but recently, I would say in the last 1 year, I've seen the effect of coming together as families. I mean, you can have members of extended families from second, third, generation coming together, and you're seeing everybody. It can be stressful at times because there are lots of preparation, there are lots of cooking, there are lots of
Mm,
places, sometimes with peers in the house. But you get to see these people. It doesn't happen often. Sometimes it happens sometimes when there are occasions like birth of a baby or wedding or when we have a family reunion. There's this family reunion we observe in my husband's house. That's for my husband's family, where every December we just have to, every Christmas we just have to be there, and it's a lot of fun because you get to see people you have not seen in the last 1 year. You get to see them. You just
mm,
know that I'm going to interact with these people. Then you feel that love, the stress from work, from being a mom, because you have other children. I mean, your children's cousins, from other families as well. And they're also relating and interacting with these children. And like I
yeah.
said earlier, you have members of the extended family. You're chatting, you're gisting about how your year has been, the experiences you've had, make fun of each other. So I love that part of our culture. So to synergize cultural identity and self-care, I know that the world is in a and it's still heading to that place where um, social connection or interpersonal relationships can be threatened because there are a lot of
Mm,
things that take our time. But
mm,
nevertheless, we should try to create that avenue where we can socialize as friends, as families, out of the busy schedule. Maybe
mm,
once in a year, just like we do it in my family. It's not obtainable in all families, I would say. But talking about the ceremonies that I mentioned, in fact, sometimes there is a slogan that we use in from my ethnic group. We say, I'm going to interpret it anyway. Mo branch.
okay, what does
So
that mean?
sometimes you get people attending your party without being invited.
Gate
Yes,
crashers, yeah.
without being invited, because when you get to a party, there will be music.
Mm,
You have the host, you have a compre, someone that is championing the event. There will be
mm,
jokes, and of
mm,
course there will be food. So it's an avenue to pull out of the stress of life. So I'll say
yes.
the reality of life, because that's also the reality. That 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours you spend in that gathering would mean a lot to that person. I won't know. Some people make friends from
Mm,
such gatherings. Some people make friends. Some people meet, their forever partner. Some people meet their better half, and some
mm,
people just go from there.
mm. Thank you for that. Bringing us, I felt like I was there in the party with you as you was describing it. And it's very much enriching because, yeah, food, dancing, like my son, he's Nigerian as well. So being able to engage in those cultural practices with him and for him and learn about that so I can also support him better as a parent has enabled me to have a love for Nigerian food, Nigerian songs, Nigerian culture. And I actually found out that I'm half Nigerian. I've done an ancestry test. I'm half Nigerian, but we'll talk about that on another show. But thank you very much for sharing, Bosede. Molinda, Terry, any quick bits you want to add into that in regards to cultural self care?
For me, I'd say definitely embracing the cultural identity. Has been important. Just little things like learning about the traditions and stuff like, because I've grown in England. I was born in Zimbabwe, but I've grown up in England. I've lived here for like 30 years now. So just reconnecting has been really, really important for me, reconnecting to the practices and then transferring it. So I actually did like a herbal pharmacology course because I wanted to learn about the different herbs that we
Mm,
have in this environment that have similar properties. So things that nervines, adaptogens, learning about actually what the herbs are, and
mm,
then finding we actually have a load of them in England, because you wouldn't expect to be able to walk into your park and pick up a ginkgo biloba leaf. You wouldn't expect that, but that's actually possible. So when you do go out into nature, you're able. I'm better able to, you can connect with your environment better. So it just sort of goes full circle. So for me, it's been about learning more about the culture and embracing it, seeing how I can use it to serve me better in my current environment, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. And before I move over to Terry, what's one of manhood's slogans, and why does that connect to cultural self-care?
Um, okay. We are
Take the
as
village.
Yeah, it takes a village to raise a child.
Mm,
And definitely that's a strong part of what we would practice culturally. So it's just again about embodying those principles in our current present environment, and that's an important part of self-care.
definitely. Thank you so much. Terry, before we move over to our next question before the break.
I just agree with Melinda, especially with the embracing your cultural identity, as well as even with the importance of taking it, knowing and recognizing that it takes a village and actually utilizing that village, whatever that village looks like for you, whether it's your personal family or the family that you created. It's definitely important to understand and be aware of knowing who you are as well as your identity and discovering who you are. I know you said you're going to mention it later or on the next show, but it's definitely important to kind of know where you come from and your background. So having that understanding of your identity is definitely important as well, a part of your self-care.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, so the final question before we go over to our break. A bit of a controversial one, but we're going to go with it anyway. This one is all about sexual self care. Now, when I was choosing this question, I was like, "Oh, are people going to think I'm talking about having sex or masturbation or whatever?" Yes, we're all adults here. We'll talk about it openly. But it's not necessarily always about that. So I'm going to start off with you, Lucy. Um, in your opinion, or in your experience, how do you practice sexual self care, particularly when it comes to like setting boundaries, exploring your desires, and how does it support you to have a better intimate relationship with yourself?
The first thing I would say is respect for your own body.
Mm,
Um, and respect for your own body can be done in different ways, the way you express yourself physically. And if you do respect your body, your partner or anybody else will respect you for that. So it's how you project yourself out to the opposite sex or the same sex if you are in a same sex relationship. Um, a lot has to do with how you're respecting your body, how you're honoring yourself as a woman, as an individual.
mm,
And the other thing is to be clear. Be clear about what you want, and also be clear about what you don't want.
mm,
So unless the other person knows about these things, then the conversation doesn't happen. So it's important to be clear. And yes, setting boundaries, it's important to say, discuss your boundaries with your partners. What are your non-negotiables? It's also
yes.
important to say, to be clear about that, So, yeah, that's and the other thing finally is to talk about sex openly.
Mm. Yes, 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 yes to everything that you just said.
Mhm.
Thank you so, so much for that. And I'm obviously with your experience within the NHS as well, I'm sure there is a lot that you encounter, particularly when it comes to how people manage their bodies. So very much agree with everything that you said there. Thank you very much. Bosede, what about yourself? I know you work with a lot of young people, adolescents, children. Explore how you would engage this conversation of sexual self-care with these young people, because I think it's very important for them to have an understanding. But yes, how do you approach this conversation with them in your practice?
Thank you, Rihanna. So, Lucy has said a lot, and to add to what she said, I think during the lockdown, while we were running online classes for students or still in school counselor then, I came across an article and I was shocked because that was the first contact I had with such article about body shape, body size, and what will fit different body shapes and different body sizes. So that took me back to an experience I had. One of my experiences as a teenage girl while I was transiting from junior school. We call it junior school here to senior school. I think over there you call it lower class to high school,
Mm,
something like that. So while I was transiting, I added weight, and I didn't want to come to the realization that I have added weight. I was
mm,
still going for the same sizes of the clothes I used to wear then. And
mm,
because I started buying my clothes from a very young age, I think about 12, 13, even though my parents would still buy me some then. And then after buying these clothes, I get home and they don't fit. And I'm angry. I'll be angry, upset with myself, like I've just wasted money. Then I'll still go back, to the market to buy the same size. It took me a long time to come to the acceptance that my body size has changed. What I'm saying in essence is to enjoy sexual self-care. We all need to come to the realization of body positivity,
mm,
to accept who you are, to accept what your body is, to accept how you look. It is
mm,
very, very important. Acceptance of how you look and who you are will bring about satisfaction when it comes to sexual self-care, because you will always be on the run if you do not come to that place of acceptance. When you
mm,
stand in the mirror, even if you are not standing, let's say it's not a full mirror, it is just half size or something that will show your face, what do you see? When you look into the
mm,
mirror, what do you see? How do you perceive yourself? If you're always seeing yourself in the negative, then when it comes to sexual self-care, when it comes to setting boundaries, you might be unable to do that. You might be open to anything, even to communicate your boundaries when someone is doing something or your
hard.
partner is doing something wrong. You will be unable
Mm,
to communicate such boundaries because you are afraid. You want to please that person. You want to
mm.
fit into um, the sexual
Oh, have we lost you? Okay. Whilst we're waiting for Bosede's connection to reestablish itself, Melinda, Terry, do you have any thoughts about? Oh, are you back? Sorry, you
Yes, I
froze
am.
for a second. Okay. Do you
Okay.
want to just finish off what you were saying?
Yes, I was saying that I'm rounding up anyway. I was saying that when we do not come to the place of acceptance about what we look like and who we are, we cannot communicate our boundaries.
Yes. Yes, very, very true. And that's definitely a way that you can breed an awareness and intimacy with self rather than seeking it externally, because that's where a lot of the time we end up trying to change who we are, change what we like, um delve into these somewhat sexual fantasies that unfortunately are a skewed reality of what intimacy and sexual interactions look like for us. And it's really important, particularly from a young age, to have that understanding of what that looks like in reality when they are of age to be able to engage in these encounters. So I very much appreciate what you said, Bosede. Melinda, Terry, anything to add before we move over to the break?
I was just going to add, I'm an advocate for abstinency. I think it's important for you to
Okay.
spend time by yourself, just tuning into yourself,
Mm,
learning yourself, sort of part of the healing process, isn't it? When you've dissolved a relationship, it's
mm,
important to be abstinent, because I do see people that sort of just move along, and it's really important for you to just be still sometimes and just hold on to yourself. I know it gets cold because, like you were mentioning, the seasons are changing. You have to be strong.
what do they call it? Cuffing season, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, you have to be strong, and you have to be able, because then you're able to have that clarity, like you're saying about, you build that intimacy with yourself, you
Mm,
reaffirm your boundaries, and
mm,
you're able to make clearer decisions, as you move forward and you meet new people, you can make better decisions. You've kind of find your voice in a different way, so you
mm,
can speak up for the things that you truly want and stand for, kind of thing. So I think abstinency is an important practice in order for people to be able to you know get you know get better results. Because even when I've been in a relationship, I'll go through periods where it's just like we just need to connect. Because if you think about it, in the beginning, when you first meet the person, there's that period of building before you actually decide that you're going to have that physical intimacy.
Yeah.
So even in that space, you should be able to replicate that once you have become, so abstinency for me is very important. And
Mhm.
Yes. Do you know, as you was talking, it was reminded me of a book an audio book that I've listened to, The Spirit of Intimacy by Salome Bonfu.
mm,
And this book, oh my gosh,
mhm,
you know, when it changes your whole perspective on intimacy,
yeah,
yeah, I'm not even gonna go into it. Anyone that's listening, watching, type in The Spirit of Intimacy. You got the whole audio book. Come
mhm.
back to me when you've listened to it, and then we'll talk about it properly. Terry and yourself, before we move over to our break.
Just to kind of piggyback on everyone, what they said, I agree with everything, especially even with Melinda about the importance of abstinence, and even with you highlighting the audiobook, The Spirit of Intimacy. I agree with you. It's important to just to listen to that and to have an open mind and an open viewpoint in regards to truly understanding what intimacy is, and even through abstinence and learning about yourself through the body positivity, that's incorporating that self-love to know what you like and dislike within yourself, and setting those boundaries where you're even able to recognize and have the awareness of the type of touch and things that when it comes to the time, what you are interested in, which is definitely is absolutely important. So just to add on what everyone else said, I agree with everything, and it's important to pay attention to that your sexual mindset as well as self care in recognizing that self love.
Yes, lovely. And I'll throw my 2 pence in there. Sexual health checks.
Yes,
Yeah. Sexual health checks is a very underrated practice of
it's
self-care.
necessary.
Yeah, it's so necessary, especially like what you said, Melinda. People can often bounce from partner to partner. Where is that break in between? And then, yeah, a whole madness can happen. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I will advocate for sexual health care being an integral part, whether you're in a relationship or not, in all honesty. Yeah, because we need to explore the health of our sexual organs and how we actually utilize them, making sure they're functioning well, especially if you're in a position, for example, you want to start a family, or if there's issues within the relationship, then how best you can mitigate that. So sexual self-care in the form of health checkups. So thank you very much, everyone, for one being so mature about this conversation as well. Because I tried to have conversations with other people, they're like, no, we're all adults here. So I'm very thankful for you bringing your mature selves to the platform. So we are going to be heading over to our break. But before we do, I just want to highlight a few links for our viewers. So, if you are interested in becoming one of our beautiful guests, as you can see on the screen today, use this link below to sign up to be a guest. Next, if you want to learn more about the Self Project, what we do, what we stand for, what we're advocating for, which is ensuring that everyone that is a quote unquote professional is able to bring forth their knowledge. And the reason why I use air quotes is because we're all professionals of our lives, and we all have the knowledge, the expertise, what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And that's the whole essence of the Self Project, is bringing forth everyday professionals on how best they can serve themselves and fulfill their lives as well. If you are interested in becoming a sponsor for the show, so if you have a wellness event, if you are advocating for mental health, if you have any products or services that you think align with what we're trying to do with the Self Project, reach out to me using this email below. And in order for us to keep things going, to support what we're doing, if you like what you see, like what you hear, reach out and send a donation. We would really much appreciate that as well. So, the last thing I would like to also share with you is it's not just a show. Some of you might think, oh, this show is really good, but we're not just a show. We are a whole movement. So, we are in the process of one, launching our community of practice. Now, I've mentioned in the past that this will be in September, which is now, but I had to prioritize my self care, in all honesty. Life has been life in. So I'm going to shift this to 2024, where I can give it my all, give you everything that you need to be in this space of communion and to support each other, to learn from each other, to share experiences. But do sign up using your email address. Just subscribe here, and you'll be notified of when the community of practice is being launched. And last but not least, we have a workbook. So the workbook is 50 questions, quotes, and reflection practices on how best you can fulfill your own life. So this is something that was developed about March, April time this year, and it is available on our website. A physical version and a digital version, as you can see in these pictures below. Grab yourself a copy if you have not already got one. And this is exactly the curriculum that we'll be using in the community of practice when it is launched. But feel free to begin as soon as you feel ready to begin. And you can use that community of practices to share your experience, bounce ideas off of each other, gain a new perspective or insight into the different aspects of self. Okay, I'm back. So, are we ready for our game? This and that. This and that. I seem like I'm the only one excited. Clearly, come on, ladies. Let's get ourselves excited. Okay, so those of you that have been on the Self Project before or have watched the Self Project, I like to play a game called This and That. It is a snap decision question that I'll be asking all of our guests. And this is all about enhancing our self awareness. Sometimes we might need to think about certain things a bit more, but this game doesn't allow you to. Sometimes we need to make those snap, quick decisions. And particularly when it comes down to self care, we need to think about those things that might preserve ourselves, our safety as well. So let's begin. Are we ready? Are we ready?
Ready?
Are we ready? Okay, good. Right, I'm going to start off with you, Lucy. Are you ready? Okay, so I'm going to read out
Yes, I
two
am.
options. You need to figure out which one you prefer in under 5 seconds. I'd probably even say under 3 seconds. Okay, so mountains or oceans?
Ocean,
Ooh, okay. Mansions or cabins?
cabins,
Music or podcasts?
podcast.
Why podcasts? Given that we're
Because
on one mic.
I love the learning. I love the learning from the podcast. Well, especially the podcast that I listen to. There's a lot of learning out there,
A
and
lot of
learning
love.
out of my self-care routine.
Definitely. Okay, two more. Plants or flowers?
Plants,
Ooh, okay. And last one, being a boss or being a worker?
being a leader. Can I say that? Not the boss.
Well, I
I
guess
don't
the
like the
boss is
word
the
boss.
leader, so yeah.
I don't like the
I
word
like
boss.
that one. Thank you very much. Okay, Terry, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, smile or eyes?
Smile.
Ooh. Save or spend?
Save.
I was gonna say you got the times running out. Why save?
Just kind of thinking about the importance of self-care because I know that's going to be one of their questions. But if I'm spending too much, then I'm going to be stressed out. So I need to plan
Yeah,
just in case for
that's
something that may happen.
yeah. Have that money for a rainy day, definitely. Okay, camping or safari?
Safari.
Ooh. Okay, last one, gym or spa?
Gym. Yeah.
Why the gym?
Because I'm on a self-care journey, working on myself. And so like a lot of times, even when I'm frustrated, the gym has helped me to kind of release and balance myself out.
Yes, I love the gym. I
Mhm.
like spas, but I like the
Me
gym.
too. I
Many
love
gyms have spas, so
yeah, yeah. Best of both worlds.
thank you. Bosede, are you ready? This or that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Comedy or drama?
Comedy, definitely.
Sorry, say that again.
Comedy,
Comedy. Okay, okay. Formal or casual?
formal,
Okay, okay, okay. Fact or fiction?
Fact.
Why facts?
It helps me find balance because life
Mm,
is real, and then I'm a realistic person. It's one of my
mm,
self-care mantras. You
yes.
can't just
Yes.
keep living and depending on fiction or probability alone.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Last two, piercings or tattoos? Oh, I won't be able to answer this one.
Say that again, please.
Piercings or tattoos?
I'll take piercing.
Okay. I really wouldn't be able to answer that. I've got both and I like them all.
Mhm.
Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
Why Facebook?
I'm comfortable on Facebook than Twitter. My Twitter account is not active.
Well,
I
I should
have
say
one, but
X.
yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, Melinda, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So we're going to go with big ears or big feet.
Big feet, because you can't see them so quickly.
I like that explanation. Money or fame?
Money.
Okay. Forest or the beach? Miss Traveller.
Ah, oh, beach,
Why the beach?
because the ocean's there and you can or stuff at the beach. The forest is also cool, but I have to focus on the beach because of the ocean. The ocean being there, it's a much nicer vibe. It's a lighter vibe. You can play games, have beach party, and all that good stuff.
Mm,
Mm.
lovely. Okay,
And then
two
the
more.
sunset. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the sunsets on the beach are unrivaled compared to in the forest. I'm sure you can have a good forest sunset, but beach.
Yeah, it's very clear. Yeah, I get what
Mm.
you mean. Okay, last two. Introvert or extrovert?
Mm. And both.
You got to
God.
pick.
Introvert.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Mm.
Last but not least, living room or bedroom?
Bedroom. Because that's like
Wow.
sanctuary, isn't it? Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah.
I
The
like
inner
that.
sanctuary.
Yeah, I like that. And you know what? I recently redone my bedroom. I've got like a mini garden in there. So, and I've got my little
Ooh,
lava lamp and I've got
lovely.
my aromatherapy lamp. So I'm like, yeah, and I've got I just stuck up some wall art that says "Dream big. Today is another day." And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to leave bed now. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. Okay, thank you so much for playing my silly game, but it's not so silly because these
Um,
are all things that we, intrinsically like, but sometimes we need to think about it. But
mhm.
sometimes we don't have an opportunity to think about what we need in that moment. As I said before, it may be an act of self-preservation that inevitably is what's being drawn upon. So thank you very much for partaking. How do you all feel?
Yeah,
Feeling
good.
good.
Good. Feel a bit more rested,
Yeah.
ready to jump back in.
Hmm. Let's do
We've
it.
got a few more questions to go. But like I said, I could speak about this topic all day. So I'm going to try not to go too much over, but I really want to get into these next set of questions because yeah, these are the deep ones. These are the deep ones. So I'm gonna start off with you, Bosede, with this question because with your expertise as a therapist and you do a lot of mental health content, I would really love for you to share with our guests and our viewers some of the strategies that you have found specifically effective in promoting mental well-being. How do they help people or yourself um, gain that ability to better cope with stress and balance.
Okay, thank you, Rihanna. Earlier on, I mentioned self-reflection.
Mm,
Introspection is a very powerful technique. It takes us to in that depth of unconsciousness in us that sometimes we shy away from.
mm,
So with my clients, I bring them to a place where they can ask themselves certain questions. Questions such as, why did I make this decision?
Mm.
Where am I at the moment? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? What are my intentions? What are my, goals? What are my
Mm.
desires? What are my dreams? It is very good to introspect because it helps you answer a lot of questions that are already solutions to the challenges that we are going through. And these challenges cuts across, all aspects of life, from workplace, social relationships.
Mm.
You feel uncomfortable rather around somebody.
Mm.
Introspect, ask yourself certain questions. Why do you feel uncomfortable around this person? Or
Mm.
you are always stressed. You feel stressed at all times. Ask yourself certain questions such as, why do I feel stressed? What am I doing? What are the things that I'm not doing that
Mm.
keeps leading to this stress? What are my stressors? Another thing that I love to do, so I'm saying I'm using myself as an example, and
Yep.
some of the techniques I share with my clients in therapy is journaling. Yeah, journaling is the word that we throw around, sometimes, but journaling is a very powerful technique. You'll be amazed at. I tell my clients that it's an outlet
Mm.
because we are emotional beings. We are wired in our anatomy is wired in a way that you can't just bottle things. You can't keep internalizing a whole lot. You need expression.
Mm.
Yeah, so when you can't talk to people, when you cannot draw, when you cannot engage in art, journaling is one technique that you can explore.
Yes.
Write how you're feeling. Write those pent up, those emotions that are pent up. Write about your experiences. For
Mm.
those that keep diaries, I salute them. Write about your experiences. Write how you feel. Write how certain situations and events make you feel.
Mm.
Then another activity, another technique that I love so much is mindfulness.
Mm.
What is happening with you right now, like in the moment? Some of us we like to live from the past. It's always about what I've done in the past, how my life was, what I was doing so well. If only I had, made this decision, I
Mm.
wouldn't be here. And some of us are waiting, for things to happen or for our lives to be where we want it to be till we get to the
Mm.
future. But the
Mm.
truth is, the future will come depending on the decision and the way you live your life today. So, what are you doing with your today? How are you living today? What are the decisions that you're making today? How are you investing in your today? I love mindfulness a lot. Staying in the moment. Stay in the
Mm.
moment. Stay with
Mm.
your emotions. Stay with your thoughts. Stay with your feelings. Do not run away from them. By staying with it in the moment, it doesn't mean that the solutions to all the challenges would even come.
Mm.
What that would do for you, it gives you clarity. You know
Mm.
what you're dealing with. You know the struggles that you are faced with. You know in the antecedents, the causes of the challenges. Then take it one at a time. Take steps one at a time on how to navigate those challenges.
Mm. Yeah, I love everything you've just said there. Definitely, definitely. A particular one that I was like, yes, was journaling. And for me, journaling and mindfulness meet at a very special place. And it is definitely an outlet, but it's also clarity, it's also aspiration, it's also dealing with unresolved emotions. Um, it's so, 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 so much. And Terry, I'm going to bring you in for this part as my journaling sister. Where do you feel journaling or even just any other practices that you support clients with can support with mental self care?
Definitely journaling, I agree, is definitely one of my go-tos for myself as well as with my clients as well. I think with utilizing guided prompts a lot of times, and thinking back earlier, when Lucy mentioned about the two specific questions that she asked herself or she asks herself when she's home and kind of getting rested for that day or relaxing. I think guided prompts that are directed to or specific to direct questions that'll allow us to pull those answers out of us. Sometimes, even when we're dealing on this journey of self-care journey, that it's a little bit difficult for individuals to kind of speak up and share it verbally. And so what I've learned within myself as well as with clients, that it's a little bit easier to write it out. And having those guided prompts sometimes kind of create that that structure that's needed where you're more free flowing in sharing information or allowing yourself to release it. And that is another form of a breakthrough that takes place in regards to the self-care that for the emotional balance. So yeah, mindfulness and journaling is two that I feel like go hand in hand. And that also helps with the self-care journey.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Lucy, what about yourself? How do you practice, or what strategies have you supported your clients with when it comes to mental self-care? And I really would like you to bring in this element of your bereavement and grief counseling, because I think that's so important. I know I mentioned at the beginning of the show about the cumulative grief. So are there any strategies that you can kind of hone in on for people to support their mental well-being?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me add to the my for myself. So mindfulness been mentioned before, and I find that in mindfulness, it's a great way to stop you worrying, because worrying is something that really brings people down.
Yeah.
And so with mindfulness, being in the moment, you don't need to worry about what can happen tomorrow, or what is looming in your future. So I find that worrying is a waste of time. And a lot of the time that the things that we worry about, they don't actually happen. So what's the point? So that's one of the big one for me. No matter how challenging situation may be, I tend to not deal with it until it actually happens. So that saves me a lot of time of being down by the same thing. And
I like that.
journaling is a big one as well. So sometimes I look back at things that I journaled like 5 years ago, and is that the same person? Is that
Yeah.
me? Did I write that? So
Yeah.
so it also helps you to see how far you've gone in life, how much you've developed in life. So that's another thing that I'd like to add. And in terms of my clients, grieving is probably the most difficult time in anybody's life. And I'm sorry, there's a bee that's got my windows open, and there's a bee that I've been trying to
That's all
avoid.
right. I hope it doesn't sting
It's
you.
like,
So be safe.
no, I don't think so. It's a little one. So anyway, so in terms of my clients, I mean, if people are grieving, what I would suggest to them is to feel the grief, to actually embody every emotion that they go through. This is so important. You cannot dismiss how you feel. And it is a moment not to think about others. It is a moment to think about you. So this is a time in your life where you really need to practice self-care. So you have to hone into every feeling, every emotion that your body feels. And also, people don't like to ask for help when they are grieving, because they feel that it's too much. They don't want to depend on others. They don't want to,
Be a
they feel they're
burden.
being a nuisance and a burden. So they don't ask for help. But this is the time when you really need to ask for help. And also talk to someone you trust. Just find someone and tell them how you are feeling, and talk to people. And another one is listening to music,
Yeah.
because music is like the universal language, isn't it?
Yes.
No, everybody likes music. So that's a good thing. Another good tip if you are grieving, And being in nature is another one.
Mm.
Also, we talked about journaling. That's one very, very important thing for people who are grieving. Journaling. Write on paper what you are feeling. It really declutters your mind. And
Yes.
for people who have pets, this is a good time for you to be with your pet and stroke your pet, just to have, the furry feeling of um, being being hugged yourself by stroking a
Mhm.
pet, for instance. Or no matter how sad you may feel, you might want to watch a comedy,
Mm.
ironically. So that can
Laughter is
help.
really
It
good.
stimulates, yeah, it will stimulate the good hormones, the dopamine in your body. And another one is deep breathing. And it's not only deep breathing, but when you breathe out, you because you've got so much going on inside, always breathe with a sigh when you breathe out,
Mm.
because it's like letting everything out. So these are some of my tips that I will give my clients. I give my clients when who are grieving.
Lovely. Thank you for the plethora of information because yeah, it's definitely something that, especially as we're coming into, I said before, the winter months, people are a lot more indoors, sometimes might be by themselves quite a lot.
Mhm.
And they start ruminating over the things that could have, should have, would have, or the future that may not ever happen, or even just down to ruminating over the things that have been said or done. So even from the stance of grief, something that I would add is forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and forgiveness
Mhm.
of another, especially if it is the grief that you're experiencing from a physical loss. um Practicing forgiveness is so freeing, it's
Mhm.
so healing. um yeah, I can't, yeah, I can't express enough how much forgiveness can support mindfulness, journaling, mental well-being, self-care. It's, yeah. And when I say forgiveness of self, it might even be that you've said something or done something or thought something of another person or a place or a thing that hasn't truly, maybe kept up to a certain standard or something. And that also can then breed a bit of guilt, a bit of resentment even. And allowing yourself to let go of, okay, this is what has happened at that time. I'm in a different place now, or that person's in a different place. Let it be. And forgiveness, I always say, is for yourself, it's not for another person. So that's what I will say. Thank you very much, Lucy. Melinda, what about yourself in regards to the practices that you do for your mental self-care?
Yeah, just to add to everything that Lucy said, for me, it goes back to just the really basics. Feeding my body well, so making sure I've got my water and my vitamins every morning on time, because that kickstarts the day. And then,
Yeah.
so essentially, I've got the three things that I have to do for myself on a daily basis, and I
Mm,
like to get things out early because then I'm free for the rest of the day. So if I do the water in the morning, take my nature walk, get some time to walk in nature, be at one with nature, and then practice some mindfulness meditation in that space. So
mm,
I'm learning to, because it's about, because obviously there's lots of traffic, there's everything, the world is going on around you. Do you know what I mean?
mm.
So when you are in nature, it's about being able to actually tune into the calmness of the space that you're in, and then meditate. And so yeah, that's my current practice, and that helps me manage the emotional stress because oh, my son's had exams this year, so I think you understand the roller coaster from when they announce the dates. Are you revising? Are you revising? And then the anxiety until you're waiting for the result. It's just been a plethora of emotions. So that's what
Yes.
helped me to be able to manage that kind of emotional stress. Because, like Lucy says, there's no point worrying. you
Mm,
know, you just have to do your best and then just let it go, kind of thing. And it has actually worked out because, like she says, the things we worry about never end up happening anyway. So
mm,
waste your
mm.
time. So that's helped me to be grounded and manage the emotional stress.
Yes, yes. And you know what? I like the fact that you've mentioned that because I was speaking to a friend about us as adults role modeling regulation in
Mm.
order for our children to be able to understand how to do that, for them to be regulated, well optimized adults, children as they grow. And this leads me nicely into the next question because I find that many people struggle with emotional regulation. Therefore, the co-regulation with their children, their siblings, their partners doesn't really happen so well. So I'm going to throw this question out to who hasn't gone first. Let's go with you, Terri, first on this question. Um, how do you personally nurture your emotional well-being practices, maybe even practice self-compassion for you to better engage and manage your emotions and relationships?
I practice and even well, I gotta practice what I preach, especially when I'm working with my clients. Active listening is definitely important to be able to pay attention to what other people are saying without interrupting or judging, as
Mm,
well as having the ability to express myself assertively. That
mm,
goes in or falls in line with it, creating the boundaries and clearly communicating my thoughts. I think it's definitely important as far as nurturing healthy relationships and promoting healthy self care within myself and with others by being able to exercise and utilize those things. Even the nonverbal cues, I think that's definitely important because you can kind of read body language, or even if you're not a person that truly studies body language, you can pay attention and see
yeah.
some of the nonverbal cues that the way that it is communicated, because sometimes verbally things may have been said, but non-verbally you can read and see something totally different. And just being aware of our own nonverbal cues and how we are receiving information from others, especially when it comes to the active listening piece.
Mm,
That's definitely important to make sure that we're still creating that space to nurture those healthy relationships and practicing patience. One
ooh,
of the many things that I'm still learning to work on within myself. And I know that even with self care, because on the journey of forever learning about ourselves, being lifelong learners, learning what we like, learning even our dislikes, learning how to kind of reprogram the mindset and things that we kind of was put on us as a child or even an upbringing. I know Molinda mentioned about the inner child healing. And
mm,
so just having that patience and being mindful that it takes time. A lot
mm,
of things don't just happen overnight.
mm,
Like I stated, I'm on a self-care journey of physical fitness and physical health and being intentional and disciplined
yeah.
with working out and making sure I'm mindful of what I'm eating and putting in my body, as well as drinking the water. And
Mm,
so, like, you think you were going extremely hard for a week in the gym, and then the weight that you want to take off is automatically going to come off. But it's like, yeah, no. Be patient with yourself.
mm,
Give yourself grace. Those are things that I definitely feel like that's important with improving or the practices of the ability to manage emotions as well as relationships when it comes to nurturing self care.
yes, yes. And just a point about you mentioned about physical fitness and
Mhm.
emotional fitness. Um, I remember listening to a podcast, for the life of me, I can't remember the name of it, but it was speaking about how emotional weight really does need to shift in order for your physical weight to be able to shift as well.
Mhm.
And being able to manage your emotions as well as the emotional baggage that we have, particularly as women, where we are child bearers, a lot of us, and holding a lot of our emotional weight in our stomachs and in our hips, our thighs, and being able to regulate those emotions enables us to have a healthier physical outlet,
Mhm.
as well as emotional response to ourselves as well. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that. I wish I remembered what the name of the podcast was. I think it's called the Receipts Podcast. But yeah, it was a while ago. But yeah, definitely something that resonates with me. Thank you so much for sharing, Terry.
Thank you.
Um, Lucy, what about yourself in respect of
Well,
emotional
Terry said
well-being?
a lot. She said a
Mm,
lot of same things that I agree and I practice as well.
mm,
It's self-compassion. Now, if we are to have compassion for the people that we meet, the people we work with, we manage, for instance, or the people who we coach, right? Because it's all
mhm,
coaching is about compassion for our clients, isn't it? So
mm,
we need to have self-compassion. It's so important that you can relay that to yourself.
Mm,
Now, one of the ways that I've learned to have self-compassion is to stop being harsh on myself. If I made in the past, if I made a mistake, I would have sleepless nights and I'd be thinking about it constantly. But now,
mm,
with self-compassion, I know that a mistake is a mistake, and I'm an imperfect person living in an imperfect world. So why worry about a mistake? So that's one way of practicing self-compassion, is to be not to be
mm,
harsh on myself, not beat myself up about something
mm,
that's not in my control. And the concept of thinking of myself and treating myself the same way I would treat a 5-year-old, a little child.
yes.
So you wouldn't say harsh things to a child. So why say it to yourself?
Mm,
And also the other one is taking people's battles. I think someone mentioned. I don't know if it was Terri who mentioned that. Taking on other people's battles. Getting involved in other people's issues.
mm,
And why do we need to take on things that do not matter? If you're a coach, that's a different situation because you have to listen to your clients and try to help them through what they're going through. But if it's just out of like gossiping um, or just getting involved in trivial matters, then that's not self-care at all. So
mm. I like to
these
call it
are
you're
some.
exiting up yourself.
And last but not least, listen to my body. So
Mm,
I'm very guilty for not, for instance, being told to go to the doctors, you know, and uh, and I'm taking my time when I should actually leave now, things like that. And
mm,
I've done it in the past, and I've done it recently. So I think I need to work a lot more on that. If I feel my body is telling me something, I need to act, and
mm.
that should be something that we all should adapt, because sometimes we don't have enough time when it comes to physical ailments. They need to be treated quickly.
Yes,
So
yes,
there,
yes.
listen to my body. I need to do that.
Definitely. Definitely. That reminds me of the episode that we did on self presence. And I had a lady from a meditation course that was on there, and we was talking about how the practice of meditation allows us to explore and pay attention to the bodily sensations that we experience and not leaning into them with craving or avoiding them with aversion, but staying present, as you were mentioning in the last question, being able to stay present and remain there, so that way you can actually explore what's actually there, what's needed. So that's what that kind of brought me back to. So anyone that hasn't watched that episode, The Power of Self-Presence, I believe that was in July. Go ahead and watch that. So I'm going to move over to the next questions because I'm like, oh my God, time is running out and I really want us to get through these. So, Bosede, I'm going to ask you this next question. And this one is in regards to social self-care that Lucy had mentioned before, or was it Terri? I can't remember, but we mentioned about how best to strike the balance between meeting your needs, engaging with social relationships. How can we do that better without overextending ourselves so that we can't then fill our own cups as well?
Okay, thank you for that question. Sometimes I'm going to use my cultural, diversity as an example. Sometimes it can be challenging to stay away from people.
Mm,
And I say that because one way or the other, in this part of the world, family is involved in our daily lives. But it
mhm.
is important to set boundaries and also communicate those boundaries repeatedly. And I
Yes.
do tell my clients, even in sessions as well, you can communicate your boundaries verbally, you can communicate them through your actions.
Mm.
Well, initially people can be skeptical about this because they are not used to this your mindset, this perception that you want to be alone, you want to be away, or you
Mhm.
can't attend this function, you can't be there for this person, and you have a genuine reason or reasons why you can't. But over time, people will also come to accept you for who you are. But if
Mm.
you are in the space or position where you want to please everyone and do everything because you don't want to offend anybody, of course people also accept you for that person. And then when you decide to turn around, you'll have a lot of backlash. So what I'm
Mm.
saying in essence is I set boundaries, just like every other
Mm.
person I've mentioned earlier. I set boundaries and I communicate those boundaries. While I'm also careful because I want to keep my social network, I want to maintain my relationships. Sometimes I make compromise, and that's the key. So you're saying, can I meet you at so time? Can we hang out? Can we have this conversation? And I know it's not convenient for me at that time. So I make a further suggestion. Can we move it to so time? Can we move it
Mm.
to this day? I'll be, free, or my schedule will be clear on this day and this time. Does it work for you? Then
Mm.
another thing that I do is, or I believe in, is prioritizing quality in
Mm.
over quantity. Do you just want to be around people while there is mental benefit and emotional benefit to networking and socializing with people? But do you just want to be around people for the fun of it, or you're particular about the kind of people you surround yourself with? Such as when you leave that meeting, when you leave that setting, you want to go back there. You want, that kind of meeting to happen again. Well, you're not discussing about, it's not a formal setting. There are a lot of things they say. They are authentic people, they are realistic. They
Mm.
share things that would influence you. They share experiences that you can also fit in into your lifestyle, into your daily living, that is profitable and beneficial. So I practice quality. And why you
Yes.
can also do this with physical networking, you can also do it with people that you follow online, people that you follow on social media. I've had to unfollow some people. I've also had
Mm.
to follow some people. So are you particular about the people you follow on social media? Are you intentional? And that's the
Mm.
word, about the people you follow. What kind of value do they add to you? These are people that
Mm.
do not even know that you're following them, and then maybe people that are following you as well. But you're learning a lot from how they live their lives, what they do, what they say, and it's beneficial to you. So let's practice quality over quantity.
Yes. Quality over quantity. I think that's going to be my key takeaway,
Mhm.
definitely. And knowing who to socialize and interact with. Thank you so much. Um, Melinda, what about yourself? Any two pence to add to that?
Yeah, just spending time alone. When it gets too much, I have to find a spa.
Mm.
And that's just the ultimate reset button for me because similar to what Sis Bosede was saying, I literally have to just manage calendar. So not like that, just manage it to make sure, because there's certain relationships that you have to check in frequently, and
Mm.
because you don't want things to drift. Like for example, I've got quite a lot of I've got like five godchildren that are all teenagers now, so you can imagine it's not the same as when they were younger, but it's
Yeah.
equally important to keep up with all of them, sometimes individually, but I'm actually thinking I'm going to get creative and just get them all together because Auntie doesn't have that much time. Yeah, because then we can all have fun and I can still do my self care. So
Yeah.
really, it's just been about being more creative with the schedule and making sure that I have time for my spa session every 6 weeks. And that's it.
Yes. We love that. We love that. Thank you so much. Um, Terry, before we move over to our last question of the show, do you have anything?
Um, I just think it just agreeing with both of everyone that have answered this question in regards to prioritizing your own needs, and being able to establish that healthy balance in your personal and professional relationships. That's definitely important, with that social self-care, and to make sure that you are tending to your needs as well as still tending to the needs of others. But making sure that you tend to your needs first.
Yes. Thank you so much. Okay, so Lucy, I'm going to throw this question out to you first. And this one I really wanted us to briefly discuss because we are currently going through a cost of living crisis globally, and many people's financial well-being has been impacted by a lot of the worldly events that have been happening, but they may not recognize how best to support themselves and their self-care, and they may not even have an understanding of the link between financial wellness and self-care. So could you shed a bit of light on that for us, please?
I would say that the best way to deal with the current financial crisis, which is affecting every household in the UK, and is one of the tips would be when you spend, just spend on what is necessary. You know, do not spend on things that are not necessary. Um, and then ask yourself the question, is it a priority right now? Is it a financial priority right now for me to get this? You know, so if the answer is not, then no, don't do it. You know,
Mm,
so do I need it? Do I need this item, extra item? You know, because
mm,
we need to be thinking of our bills. We need to thinking about all the necessaries that need to be paid, and that we have to do it for ourselves, and no one else is going to do it for us first.
mm,
And then also thinking about less is more. So instead of, you know, try to again to downsize, to declutter, to have less instead of more, you know, and have more of what is needed but less of what is not needed. And then I would say we need to spend time to think about our insurances, for instance, pensions, and also protecting our assets if we have
mm.
assets. I think it's a good time, you know, to do that. So these are some of the basic. I'm not a financial guru, but I would say, you know, as a layperson, basically, this is what I think needs to be done.
Yeah. And it's not about being a financial guru, it's about what you feel supports your financial well-being. So thank you for imparting those tips. Very much appreciated. Terry, what about yourself? What do you do to support with financial well-being?
Kind of just piggybacking on what Lucy stated, and I think you even mentioned it when you asked the question, that financial self-care is definitely, I would say, equally as important, if not really more important than the traditional forms of self-care. Because if your financial space or your finances aren't really in place and in order, you're definitely going to be stressing and worrying, and
Mm,
not really able to tend to anything else until you kind of get that straight. I think it's important that you prioritize your financial self care, like Lucy stated, and reducing, trying to see the really basing off of the needs versus the wants. Of
mm,
course, like we need to focus on the necessities and what we need, and then if we're able financially to kind of throw in a little bit of wants, then that's cool. But it's best to kind of be willing to sacrifice the wants and
mm,
then focus on those a little bit later, but making sure that you're tending to the potential needs. Improving the mindset of money, that's definitely important. Being mindful, educating yourself, having that financial literacy. We
mm,
stated about the education of the things that we want to learn individually when it comes to our personal self-care or how we learn new things or try new skills. Financial literacy is definitely important. I can't speak for others, but I know here in the States, especially in the African American communities, a lot of times we're kind of a little bit lax or behind when it comes to financial literacy and financial education. And
mm.
so that is passed down to different generations where we're unable to properly manage our finances or even know how or where to start with getting rid of debt or even just knowing even the lingo of
Yeah.
the literacy. So that's definitely important, just having that mindset and be willing to learn about it and be willing to now set aside to save, and then take care of the priorities or necessities that's needed. And then later you can focus on a little bit of the things that you want.
Yeah. Definitely, definitely. And that's something I've been really doubling down on is my financial self-care, paying off debts and,
Mhm.
contacting debitors wherever I need to. Because sometimes we can put our head in the sand when we're going through financial difficulties.
Mhm.
But this is the time where, Lucy, you mentioned before about reaching out for help or
Right.
regulating your emotions or expressing your needs and wants, having that social network about you. So it's an all-encompassing thing. And if you don't have that foundation of my financials are straight, then you feel like your whole world has shaken. So
Mhm.
yeah, I can completely understand because it can threaten different aspects of your life without you even realizing it, such as like security of your home, your ability to feed yourself, the quality of food that you feed yourself as well, getting out to the gym even. So um I would say for me, looking at the financial investments that you have in your life that do support your self-care alongside being able to budget for the future and have that literacy and understanding and the practice to be able to support yourself and future generations as well.
Yes.
Thank you very much. um Briefly, any two tips from you, Melinda and Bosede, on this subject of financial well-being?
I was just gonna say personally, I've started doing like every 3 months I do like a financial check. So
Mm,
you just do like, so there's times where you know that everything's fine, but just to keep on top of myself, like the
mm,
mindfulness aspect of it, I do like a diary for 30 days just to see what I'm actually spending my money on. And I
yeah.
find that the diary always inspires me to spend less money because I just don't want to get down. Oh, that's another thing, especially with the contactless, it's become easier to spend money
Yes.
than previous, like, that previous years. So I do have to mentally be like, okay, this month I'm writing every single transaction down so I
Mm,
can have a realistic pattern of how I spend my money. Because
mm,
it's really important to be realistic when it comes to finances because it's so easy, especially with the contactless. You
mm,
won't realize you made that £60 purchase, or you spent that money in how? Where did the money go? But write it down, then you'll actually know I'm going to be on top of this. And it puts you in a much better position. You can plan things. You can see where you're making certain, where you're making not so wise investments. Like for
mm.
example, coffee here and there. Sometimes you need a coffee, but then you calculate, do I have to have it twice a day, every single day? So it
Mm,
just helps to put things into perspective. And then you find yourself in a position where you are able to actively plan and save and just have a bit more ease in life, just feel a bit more comfortable. I think it goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it?
mm.
If you've got your financials in place, like you say, you can actually be more selective about what you want to eat rather than, oh my God, I just need to eat something.
Yeah,
So yeah, financial
thank
literacy is
you.
essential.
Thank you for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Bosede, what about yourself? Any lasting tips before we close the show?
Save, saving is very important, whether you have enough or not. There's
Mhm.
this app here in Nigeria that helps me to save. It's connected to my account, so I have a particular daily savings that they pull out of my account.
Mm,
It's automated, so the money just goes out every day at a particular time, and then I'm saving it up. So saving,
nice.
very, very good.
Yes, I like that idea. I might have
Mhm.
to look into that. We've got something similar. NatWest does this roundup thing,
Mhm.
and each transaction it will round you up to the nearest pound, and it just automatically goes straight into your savings account. So it kind of encourages you to spend, but it also automatically encourages you to save. So yeah, I really like that idea. Thank you so much. We have now come to the end of the show. We've gone over by quite a bit, but it was necessary to impart this knowledge. But before we go, I've got two asks from you all and one bit of information for everyone that is watching. Just to recap, if you would like to be one of our panel guests for the next show, this is the link to sign up. If you want to learn more about the Self Project, click this link here. If you are interested in becoming a sponsor for any future episodes, that's the link there. And dig deep, dig deep, dig deep, and offer any donations. It doesn't always have to be a financial donation. We also accept any physical donations as well. Okay. So, what I will say now is this is the part of the show where I ask you all for your self word suggestions. So, guests and viewers, please type in the chat box what your self word suggestion is. Guests, please swing them my way. Any self word suggestions that you'd like to be explored, and these will be voted for across social media.
Mm.
Have a think, have a think, have a think. Can be so far we've had the power of self-awareness, power of self-discipline, we've had the power of self-teaching, we've had the power of self-presence. Today, obviously, we've got the power of self-care. So any self-worth suggestions that you'd like us to explore for future shows?
Self-worth.
Self-worth. Thank you very much, Terry.
Self-respect.
Who said that? Melinda? Yes, self-respect. I like that one. Thank you very much. Any more for any more?
Have you done self-compassion?
I actually
Self-compassion.
haven't. Yes. Thank you very much, Lucy. Self-compassion. Bosede, do you have any suggestions?
Self-positivity.
Ooh,
That's good.
self-positivity. I like that one.
Hmm.
I like that one. Anyone that is watching, if you don't add it now, then I will go back and check the comments. Um, but I'm going to add one. If um, no one in the audience is going to add, I'm gonna say the power of self-advocacy.
Oh,
Mm.
another good one.
Um, I say that because I work for an advocacy organization. Advocacy is dear to my heart. I will always be an advocate, regardless of the position that I'm in. We're all advocates in our own right as well, by way of standing up for things that we believe in. If we feel there's an injustice, when we make an informed decision about the things that impact our lives, self advocacy is the be all and end all for me. So that will be my self suggestion. Um, so, just a quick round of where people can find you and how they can connect with you. Go, Melinda.
You can find me on Facebook at Words and I Mystic and on Instagram at Inspired Excursions. And yeah, that's where you'll find me online.
Wonderful. Terry.
On Facebook and Instagram, you can find me on the No to Thrive Collaborative.
Thank you. Lucy.
So I'm mainly on Facebook. I've got personal profile, but I also have a group, Women Finding Meaning in Grief. And I'm on LinkedIn. I don't use Instagram that much, but I'm there. LinkedIn, Facebook, that's that really.
Thank you. Bosede.
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram, Bosede Christiana Wila.
Wonderful. And just so you know, all of their details are in the description box at the bottom of this video. So you'll be able to find a bit more about them as well and find their handles available. I just want to say a massive, massive thank you to you all. I really appreciate your time, your wisdom, your energy, your involvement. And yeah, I can't wait for people to replay this and gain some knowledge. I hope they had taken my advice and brought their notebook and pen, because there was so many tips and gems dropped. I just want to wish you all a happy Sunday wherever you're watching this or tuning in from. This is Rihanna from the S.E.L.F Project with our powerful, powerful guest for the power of self-care. Have a blessed and most beautiful day. Take care.
Bye.